Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome into my craft room. I'm Sally Bowman. You're in my Handmade at Home craft room, and it's a Friday afternoon once again. The weeks are going so quickly. I can never believe it when I wake up and realise it's Friday. I'm very happy that you've been able to join me. Today I'm going to be doing some quick Christmas gifts, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But before I get started, let me just check on my iPad and make sure that it looks as if I am actually live. It tells me I'm live on my camera, but you never know for sure until you check. So let's just have a look. If you're watching, do please let me know whether you can see and hear me okay. Let's just find myself and see if I'm live. Yep, it looks as if I'm there, so that is good news. So I should be able to see your comments. Let me know if you can hear and see me okay. All right. Oh, my grid paper's moving. Let me just glue that down. There we are. All right, so things to tell you today. First of all, some class information. Today is the last day that you can book for my January card class and for my January card class by post. The live class, the in-person class, is taking place on the morning of Thursday, January the 5th. And, ooh, I've just got a weird message come up on my phone. No idea what that was from. Thank you, Antriana. Brilliant. Antriana saying the sound is good. That's really, really helpful. Thank you. Right. So yes, January's monthly card class taking place on the morning of Thursday, January the 5th, and the by post version, which I will send out at the latest by January the 6th. You need to book those by today. If you don't know what's involved in those classes, send me a very quick email and I will get back to you this afternoon. Thank you, Maureen. Welcome. And thank you for saying everything looks and sounds okay. Good news. The January Fancy Fold Cards class, which is running on, let me just check, the 16th of January, which is a Monday morning. That needs to be booked by a week today, next Friday, please, which in theory at least is my last working day. So that's the day I need to know everything by, otherwise it won't get dealt with until the new year. Now, the last ordering date has changed. So Stampin' Up had told us that next Friday was going to be the last date to place your orders in order to be reasonably sure that you would get them before Christmas. However, they have had a lot of orders from the last chance list and the clearance rack. They've been bumper order days, and so the warehouse is much busier than anticipated. Therefore, things are taking a little bit longer to pick and pack and send out. And UPS is really busy this time of year as well, not least because of the postal strikes, which means that they have got a lot of Royal Mail's business. So all those things have meant that Stampin' Up today has changed their minds about the last date to order for pre-Christmas delivery. And that date is now the 12th. That is Monday. Okay, this Monday coming up. So if you want to book for the Fancy Fold Cards class and you want to place an order to pay for that class and you would like your order before Christmas, that means that I need your order by Monday. Okay, I have emailed out to my classes mailing list with all the dates and the information. So if you think you're affected and you didn't get the details just then check your inbox and there's an email there with all the information. I will be placing an order on Monday. I will also be placing an order next Friday the 16th. Anything else that has come in since then. But next Friday the 16th is the last date I anticipate placing an order this year, because from next Friday I am then taking a break until the first working day after Christmas, and I've totally lost track of when that is. I'll tell you next week. It's January the 3rd, the 2nd, the 3rd. I can't remember. Lots of our bank holidays are falling on weekend days, which means we get extra weekdays off, and I'm very confused at the moment, but I will check that for next week. And next Friday is also my last Facebook Live before January as well. Once again, I'll remind you about that next week. So the last chance list is going. Quite a lot of things have sold out. If you look in my online shop, when I put the camera down, my website will be there on the table just for you to take a note of if you don't know. In the online shop, you can get up to the minute stock information so you can see what's available. and order from that if you're looking for things which are not going to be available after January the 4th. My new catalogues arrived today. It was very exciting. And I will be sending those out between Christmas and New Year so that they will hopefully not get lost in all the piles of Christmas cards and Christmas debris. If your house is anything like mine, it becomes a bit of a disaster area around Christmas time. So I will be sending those out between Christmas and New Year, and that will give you time to have a look and compile your wish lists ready for when everything is available on January the 5th. And I have also received my order of new goodies, which is very exciting. However, you will not believe how restrained I have been. I have not opened the boxes because I have certain things on my to-do list today that really need to get done today. And I promised myself as soon as they're done, I will be able to dive in and look at my new toys, but not until then. So I hope you're impressed with how restrained I've been. All right. It's almost time to turn the camera down to my desk and do some crafting. So I've built today as quick Christmas gifts. This was an incredibly popular session this time last year. So I thought I would try and do something similar again this year. I'm calling it Christmas gifts because we are putting together something that can be given as a gift, but I'm not actually making the gifts themselves. I'm actually just making some pretty packaging for them. And you will see that all the gifts that I've picked, not only can you substitute all sorts of things for them, you don't have to have exactly the gift I've got, but also they are all very inexpensive gifts and the kind of thing that you can pick up in the supermarket, at the petrol station, at the corner shop. If you need a gift at the last minute, maybe you get invited to someone's house and you want to take a little hostess gift. Maybe you're wrapping everything and you suddenly think, oh crumbs, I haven't got anything for Auntie Jennifer or whatever, and you need to get hold of something quickly. I always find those kinds of emergencies tend to happen about 9:30 at night, so you will be able to pop to your local petrol station and get the things you need. Right, let's turn the camera down. I'll be fiddling around with some of my wires and things, no doubt, as usual, but I will do my best to do all that very quickly. Let me just find some washi tape to go over the camera. Honestly, I've got so many layers on today that I can hardly move. I've got 2 layers on my bottom half. I've got 4 layers on my top half. It is bitterly, bitterly, bitterly cold here in the UK today, even down here on the south coast where we normally have pretty mild weather. It was -6 this morning when I got up. -6. I mean, that is just ridiculous. It never normally gets that cold here. And we're not even into the coldest part of the year yet. The end of January, February time is usually the coldest, so I dread to think what that might be like. Yeah, it's absolutely bitterly cold. Yesterday the frost didn't melt in the front garden. Frost stayed there all day long, and it's pretty much the same today. It is, I must say, beautifully sunny. It was pretty miserable to start with, but now we've got clear blue skies and sunshine, and the last of the leaves are falling off the trees, and it's really beautiful outside, but extremely cold. Right, let's see how that is. Ooh, that is really, really twisted round, isn't it? I haven't done very well on that at all. I'm probably turning that the wrong way. Okay, let's try the other way. Honestly, I've been so much better at this recently. I thought I'd got this sorted out and it wasn't going to be a problem. Let's just see if I can get the top of my grid paper in. That was a problem last week. There we are. Let's see if that's that. My camera stand doesn't have any kind of fine tuning on it or fine adjusting on it. It's all a little bit, it's done with an estimate. I've got no dials with numbers or anything like that, so I can't always get it exactly the same as I had it last week. That's still not very good, is it? Bear with me. I'm just going to try and twist this a little bit more, see if I can improve that. I thought, oh, don't tell me I've done it the wrong way. Honestly, why? Why do I find this so difficult? Right, okay. I think I might quit while I'm ahead. All right. So I'm going to show you the first kind of thing. I'm going to make one slightly different to this that I'm going to make. So I've used for this, and I should say everything I'm using today for the actual packaging I had in my stash. I haven't specially ordered anything. I've used what I've got, and I would encourage you to do the same. So for this, I have used the Peekaboo treat bags. Now I had some of these. I didn't have a whole pack. They come in a pack of 10, and you get 5 of the craft ones and 5 of these white ones. So you can see I've only got white ones left, and I had 1 craft one. I had all these bits of die cut holly and berries in my little box of spare bits and pieces. They are die cut with the holly berry dies. So this is what I've used here. And let me lift that up for you to see. I popped some candy canes in that. I like the way the red and the green on the candy canes picked up on the red and the green here. So it's just a little token gift, but these bags are great. They're food safe. They've got a really nice grip seal strip to them, and you can stamp on the paper whether they're the craft ones or whether they're the white ones. So they're a really nice high quality bag, and you'll see in a minute I'll push at the bottom so they do actually stand up as well. I actually can't bear candy canes, but they do look very, very festive. So I've got something similar here, but I went through my stash again to see what I got, and I had some white labels and bits and pieces which I grabbed, but actually when I put them next to, in fact let me show you, next to this treat bag, although it looks white, when you put white next to it, it's actually almost a cream. I guess it's an ivory colour, and it just wasn't a very good match. So I put some very vanilla pieces with it, which I liked much better. So if I put that on there, that seems to me, although it's darker, I don't know whether the quality of today's light is showing you that, but for me the vanilla worked better. So these will go back in my stash. This is the kind of bits and pieces that I get left when either cutting for classes or if I'm making a batch of cards myself. And instead I've pulled out some of these. I've also got some chocolate money. I had some gold coins and I had some silver coins left over from filling advent calendars, so I thought the silver ones would go nicely with this, so let's put those aside. So I have my Peekaboo treat bag. I've actually got 2 of these label pieces. I've got a double looped bow tied in the open weave ribbon. I've loved this ribbon. I'm sorry that this hasn't carried over. This was actually in my ribbon jar. I tied this for something else which I didn't end up using it for, so I had that already. I've got a couple of vanilla labels, and then the little pieces that you use for backing the holly here are cut in the vanilla glimmer paper. I'm hoping that that's going to kind of sparkle in the light, not sure. There's a lot of shadowing, isn't there? I'll see if I can sort that out in a moment. I've also got a stamp from the Leaves of Holly stamp set. I'm going to use this Christmas Wishes one, which is the same one on here, and it's sized perfectly to fit the label die in the holly berry die, so it all works really nicely together. Got a foam mat because it's a photopolymer stamp set. And for ink, I thought a little bit about what colour to use. I wondered about using a brown, but in the end I've gone with basic grey, which is a really nice neutral when you don't want to use black. If black is just going to be too much of a contrast, I really like basic grey. So I think that's everything I've got here. Let me just, sometimes the light helps, sometimes it doesn't. The lighting in here is tricky on a winter afternoon, because I've got lights all around me, but I've got a lot of light coming in at an angle from one of the windows. I think that's worse. Let's swap it round to the other side, see if that helps. Let's see if I can just fiddle with that a little bit. I don't think that's very much better, is it? Let's turn that off for a minute If you think that it would be startlingly better with that, let me know. So Andriana has had to salt the car park where she works. She says it's freezing. She needs to move somewhere warm for the winter. I absolutely agree with you, Andriana. We were lucky enough this year to go on holiday to the Med in January, and it was absolutely incredible to go somewhere that was really, really warm at that time of the year, but it made it quite hard to come back. But spring was definitely on the way when we got back. We're not doing that this January, unfortunately. I'm just going to have to tough it out here. So Kay is here and she says hello. So you are welcome, Kay. Hi. Right, so this little label here, let me pop it on my mat and then you'll be able to see the contrast better. What I'm actually going to do is I'm going to snip off this border that comes all the way around, and it's only joined at 2 points, here and here. And I'm going to do that so that I can easily overlap the two labels and have holly coming out the top and the bottom. So if I try and do that over here, I'm hoping that it will be easier for you to see because of the contrast. Let me hold that over there maybe so you can see that. I'm hoping you can. It's very hard for me to see what you can see because it takes my iPad so long to catch up. There we go. But I'll show you in a second when I've snipped this. So you don't have to do anything terribly clever with that. If you end up, I've got a little bit of a jagged edge there, I'm just going to round that corner off. But you can't really, once it's all put together, you can't really tell that it's been snipped off. So I'm just going to do that with the other one. I love this border. It's very, very finely detailed, but it's much easier to not have to glue it if I'm gluing two labels together. Right, let's pop those bits in the bin. All right, so these two are going to go together on top of each other. But before I do that, I need to pop the glimmer paper on. So I'm going to glue around the edge, the outside edge of the holly, and I'm actually using a little bit more glue than I normally would because I'm sticking glimmer paper. Some of this glue is going to kind of fill up the nooks and crannies in the glimmer, because that's obviously, the surface is made up of lots and lots of little tiny pieces of glitter. And so I allow a little bit of extra glue, and then that just layers on top like that, and I can just slide those together to get a nice neat finish. There we are. I'm tilting it a little bit. I don't know if the light's going to catch that or not. Maybe. So I'll give that a good press down and then set it aside. I'm covered in glue already. First project, first piece of gluing, and I've got myself gluey. Is it going to be one of those days? I think it might be. So, are you ready for Christmas? I would like to know. Actually, I'd particularly like to know about those of you who are not ready for Christmas, because that will make me feel a little bit less behind. I've still got an awful lot to get done, but you know, I'm always at this stage. About the second week in December I start to panic that I won't get everything done, and I always do get everything done. All right, so now I've just turned one of these up the other way, and I'm just going to match those, the corners of the actual label part. I've got glue on the back of this, so I'm going to put it to the back of my grid paper and try not to transfer glue to everything else, and just let that set nicely. Right, I'm going to bring in my mat because I'm now going to stamp my label. And actually, before I do that, I'm going to try and get some of this glue off my hand. There we are. All right. There we are. So we've got Christmas wishes on there. I'm going to pop some dimensionals in the center on the back, and I may end up putting a couple at the ends as well. I'm just going to have a look at this. Yeah, I was wondering whether I was going to end up with several thicknesses of card either end, which I did when I made this one, because I'd got this build up here of 2 layers of the holly berries and also those little ferny bits behind. I had a lot of layers of cards, so although I needed dimensionals in the middle, I didn't actually need them at the ends to keep that end raised, but I do on this one. Okay, so here is my bag. I'm going to stick the decoration onto this before I fill it. It's much easier to stick this onto a nice flat surface. And I'm going to pop, if I can see them, where are they, my glue dots? My glue dots are somewhere. There we go. I'm actually going to pop a couple of glue dots on here. That end is raised up slightly higher because it's on the top label, and I think I'm going to get a better stick for that end of the label if I use glue dots, because they're going to grab straight away and I'm not going to have to worry about holding that in place and pressing it down extra hard because it's actually sitting a bit higher up. I'll lift it up in a minute and see if I can show you what I mean. It's one of those things, if you've been crafting for a little while, it's kind of second nature. You can see that something isn't going to sit level, but it may not be obvious to you because you're just watching me make it. So if I hold this up here, so this leaf here, this holly leaf, is this one. So it's sitting on top of this other label, and I don't know if you can see that there's a bit of a gap. So anyway, I've popped some glue dots on those holly leaves rather than the liquid glue, just to make sure that the whole thing stays in place. Okay, so I'm going to center this on here. It just is just the right width for the bag. There we are. So that is stuck on there. Pop my label in the middle. Like that. And then I've got my double looped bow. So I'll pop a couple of glue dots on there. I always use glue dots for bows because they are so strong and they just hold it brilliantly without kind of soaking through. There we go. So that's my ribbon. And then I have some of these little pearls. These are a really creamy, not quite yellow, but almost yellow coloured pearl, and they're in this tiny little bag which I've marked on it there, left over from my Nourish and Flourish kit. So that kit is discontinuing. It's in the on the last chance list, and it was very generous indeed in terms of embellishments. So I had some of the pearls left over after I'd made my kit, and I thought actually they are a nicer colour for this than the regular pearls. So I'm just going to scatter a few of these. There we are. So that's all the decoration on my bag. And I do all that, as I say, before I fill the bag, because I just think it is so much easier than trying to stick things onto a bumpy or a curved surface once you've put your goodies inside. Now, if you don't have these little treat bags, you might have some different treat bags. You might have some paper bags, you might have some cellophane bags, and you can do something similar on those as well. This will work for all kinds of things. So pull out your scraps, see what you've got without having to get your die cutting machine out, because the idea of this is that this will be pretty quick to put together. I'm going to open this now and just flatten out that base. It's got this grip seal strip, which is really strong. Okay, and pop my bone folder in to push out the bottom. I can't quite get my hand in here, my hands are too big, but my bone folder will fit in. So if you are a stellar baker, you could make a cookie or a brownie or something and pop it in here. That would be a lovely gift to be given. There we are. So that will now stand up. I'm just going to slide in my chocolate coins. And then seal it up again. And there we are. That is gift number one. So I'm really pleased with that. I think that looks so pretty. I've got very into white on white this year, and I guess vanilla on vanilla is pretty close to that in similar idea. So that's number one. Let's pop those out of the way. I'm just going to drink some of my tea before it goes cold. All right, so my next gift decoration is going to be for one of these. If you're in the UK, you will know matchmakers. They come in mint and they come in orange. They used to come in coffee. I don't know if they still do. They're a chocolate stick with little crunchy pieces of flavoured sugar in them. They're very, very delicious. They're very inexpensive. I think I got this in the pound shop. It was not a lot of money, a pound. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a box for it. So I have some patterned paper and some garden green card. That's one of the greens in the paper. And before I make the box, I will show you my formula for actually creating a box, and then it won't matter whether you've got matchmakers or Maltesers or anything else that comes in a box. You will be able to create a box for it. I've also got some thread and some ribbon which coordinate. I've got some scraps of coordinating card and paper, and my very best trio punch, because I'm going to make a tag. Well, the first thing that I'm going to do is show you how I calculate how to make a box. So I'm going to make a box with a base and a lid as two separate pieces, and my lid is actually going to tuck inside the base. Sometimes the lid will go over the top. In this case, I'm going to do it so that it tucks into the box base. And my base is going to be made of card and my lid is going to be made of paper. So the first thing that I do is work out the measurements of my actual gift. So if I measure this on my grid paper, obviously a ruler will do exactly the same job. So this measures 5 3/4 of an inch here. Let's write that down. And on this side it measures 5 3/8 of an inch. And I also need to know how tall it is, which is an inch. So the sides are an inch high. All right. So the paper for my box base needs to be, let's put them the right way around. Across here I need that amount, and then I need the same height. So my paper, or sorry, my base is going to be 5 3/4, because that's how big it is across there, plus the height of one side, which is 1 inch, plus the height of the other side, and then I always add a little bit on top. So unless it's something very large, 1/8 of an inch is usually enough, just to give me a little bit of wriggle room so that I'm not forcing the box into another box that's exactly the same size. If this was much bigger, I might make that 1/4 of an inch just to give myself a little bit more to play with, but an 1/8 of an inch works pretty well. So then I just add up all these measurements to give me the dimension this way for my piece of card for the base. So that's 5 3/4, 6 3/4, 7 3/4, 7 7/8. So 7 7/8 of an inch. Let's put a circle around that. And then I'm going to do the same with the other direction, which we've measured as 5 3/8 of an inch. So that, then I need a side here which is an inch, the other side which is an inch, and then my wriggle room which is 1/8 of an inch. So that's 5, 6, 7 1/2 inches. So my base is going to be these two measurements: card 7 7/8 of an inch by 7 1/2 inches. And then the lid, I use exactly the same measurements, but I just take off 1/8 of an inch. So the paper for the lid, let's put card base and paper for the lid. So if I take 1/8 of an inch off these, that's going to be 7 6/8 of an inch, which is the same as 3/4 of an inch, by 7 3/8 of an inch. So I hope that is clear. Hi Marjorie, better late than never. You can always watch the beginning part on catch up. So that is how I calculate how big my piece of card for the base and how big my piece of paper for the lid is for this kind of box. So if that was a box of Maltesers, it would be different measurements, but I would do it in exactly the same way. I'd measure it that way, and then check the height, and then I do my calculation. So if anybody wants me to run through the numbers again, let me know. But if you don't, I will just carry on with the making. So I have here my pieces of paper and card, which I have cut to size. So my card base, 7 7/8 of an inch by 7 1/2 inches is that. And my paper, 7 3/4 by 7 3/8. That's it. So I now need to score it. I'm just going to grab my scoreboard. And my scoring measurement is 1 inch. So that's the height of the box. So I'm going to score both of these at 1 inch on all 4 sides. So for the paper, I'm going to use the larger end of my scoring tool because it's less likely to poke through and make a hole than if I was to use the smaller end. So I'm just scoring it at 1 inch and turning it and scoring the next side at 1 inch until I've gone all the way around. Then I'm going to do exactly the same for the card, but I'm going to switch the tool around and use the smaller end. Because the card is thicker, I'm going to use the smaller tool because that will score through it slightly more deeply, which is better for card. There we are. So with any kind of shaped item, or anything at all, frankly, if you're folding card or paper, you definitely want to use a bone folder. So as you fold it, you then rub the bone folder along the fold and press it down really hard, and that gives you a lovely sharp crease, and whatever you're making will just come together so much better. There we are, so that's folded on all those score lines. The next thing I'm going to do is to make some little snips. What I need to do is to make some tabs so that I can lift up the two sides and join them together. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a cross here where the vertical and the horizontal score lines meet, and I'm going to snip from the edge to that cross on both sides here, and then I'm going to, on the opposite sides, I'm going to do exactly the same. It doesn't really matter if you end up, if I do this one here and instead of doing there I do a cross here, but as a general rule I go opposite. That way my box will be held together symmetrically. So I'm going to snip on the score line, and then I'm going to take just a little wedge out of there. If I lay it down, you can hopefully see that I've taken a little wedge out, and that will mean that the corner of the box fits nicely, and when I glue the tab, that I don't end up with some of that inside tab poking up over the side of the box. If you don't snip this out, then when you fold it, this bottom edge of the tab doesn't fit nearly as well. And if you can see, I've got an overlap of card there. But if you take out just a little wedge, that doesn't happen. So that's all four corners done on the box. And I'm going to do exactly the same on the lid. It's probably not very easy for you to see on this patterned paper. It's actually not very easy for me to see. But I'm just doing exactly the same. And I'm taking that little slice out of the tab. I'm not taking it out of the long side of the box here. If I did that, I would end up with a side of a box that was not completely rectangular. There we are. So that's all the snipping done on this. Now all I need to do is glue the corners of my box together. Now of course I could stamp this and it would be lovely stamped, but I'm going with quick, so I'm not going to stamp it. So all that happens is I'm going to put glue on these small tabs and then glue them to the inside there. Before I actually stick anything, I always check that I've mitered that tab enough. If I find I've got any of the side of the box showing, I just take a little bit more out of that miter. That should be better now. Yeah. So let's glue those together. too much glue on there now. I didn't have enough to start with. I don't want it to ooze out, but I do want it to come right up to the edge there. Yeah, that's definitely too much glue, never mind. So then I make sure that my cut edge of the side panel meets the score line there, and I get a really nice right angled corner. Check those two tabs sit nicely, which they do. Glue on the little tab, hold it just in place for a minute to make sure that it sets nice and square. And then the final one. Okay, now this is almost a square box, but not quite. So let's pop this in, check that it fits. Yeah, absolutely perfect. You can get your fingers in to get it out, but it's not too big a box. So that's great. Now I'm just going to make the lid exactly as I made the box base. Again, I just check that I've mitered those corners enough. That one could do with just a little fraction more. There we go. Might need to break out my new glue in a minute, I think. Again, make sure that you get the side of the box going right up to that score line with nice square corners. I think it is so nice to be able to create a box for anything. Needs just a smidgen more trimming off. It's not even a millimetre, it's probably half a millimetre I'm taking off, just to make sure that it's tucked, the tab is tucked away out of sight. My real love is card making. I like making cards more than I like making 3D items, and I make a lot more of them, a lot more cards, but there is something very special about a small gift beautifully packaged that makes the finished article look like so much more than it really is. Okay, so that's my lid. Tuck that in, and that will hopefully fit beautifully around the matchmakers. It will. There we are. So now I've got some of this ribbon, which I'm just going to wrap round, cross over and bring back. I'm sure you all know how to do this. I've just crossed this over on the back, and then I'll bring it back to the front. I don't want to cut it off the reel yet because I didn't really know how much I was going to need. I actually don't need quite as much as I pulled out. About there. So I'm just going to check again on the back, make sure that I haven't got anything twisted round. Get that central. I didn't do that very well. Let's start that one again. I think when I pulled it tight, I pulled it off centre. We definitely want this centrally on the back. There we are, that's better. And then on the front, I slide these underneath that horizontal piece. Both the ends go underneath. And then I just tie them in a single knot, and that holds everything in place. And now I can take my time tying a bow, knowing that everything is all held together, and I'm not trying to hold the knot in place with my fingers or anything like that. There we are. Yeah, so that is my pretty little parcel. Drink some more tea. Now I want to make a tag to go inside. I did fiddle around and make a sort of a prototype here. So I have some card here. So I have a piece of garden green. This measures 4¼ inches by 2 inches, and then I have a piece of white that's exactly the same size. And first of all, I'm going to glue these two together because I want white on the back to write on, and then green on the front to add some contrast to the paper. So I'm going to bring in my very best trio punch. If you haven't found this, this is hidden away in the July to December mini catalogue. It's very hard, very hard to find. The easiest way to find it in the catalogue is to go to the back, where there is kind of a pictorial index. And if you look in the tools section there, you will find it. And this punches 3 different shapes. It punches this triangle shape, an ornate corner, and then this little slot here. So first of all, I'm going to create the top of my tag in here. So I'm going to slide it in at the corner, which has got the shape I want. There's a little ridge here and a little ridge here, and I'm going to make sure that my card is butted up against both of those. That makes sure that it's in the punch square, and then I'm going to push down in the middle. It's really tempting to push on the corner, but try and push in the middle on these punches, and it will actually go through those 2 layers of card quite easily. That's the shape that's punched out, so you can see it's just like the one on the top. And then I'm going to do the other side, so again pushing it against both those ridges, and there we go, that's shaped my tag. And then I want to pop a slit in. I'm just going to mark in pencil the center of this. So I'm using my grid paper, you could use a ruler. So I've just made a pencil mark, and I'm now going to use this little slot here, and you can see on the punch there is a line that comes down there that marks the center of that slot. So I'm going to line up my pencil mark with the line on the punch, so it's going in straight and central, and again push down in the middle. And I've got my slot there. Let me just rub out that pencil mark. I've got a little bit of white baker's twine. That can go through the top. And then I've got some of the paper here as well. Not quite sure whether to use a big piece or, yeah, I think a wider piece would be nice. I'm just going to just cut that a little bit bigger than I need. And glue that on. trim off the extra. If you do it this way, you get a precise fit. I could have measured that piece for 2 inches wide, the same as my tag, but you know, sometimes there's just the most minute of variations and you can end up cutting your piece of paper fractionally too small. So I would always rather do this if I can, stick it on and then trim it in situ. So I can write on the back and then just tie this round. There we are. So that then is gift number 2 and how to create the perfect sized box. I'm also going to just glue tack down the ends of my grid paper. Are these corners annoying you as much as they're annoying me? Let's get rid of those. Press them down. Okay, so my last gift idea is very quick. It does involve chocolate again. I make no apologies for that. It's Christmas. So these are these little tiny bars of chocolate. Again, they're not expensive. You get 10 in a pack. So I'm going to wrap these up. I've got 3 here that I've already wrapped. So all I did was lay them onto some patterned paper and work out, just as if I was wrapping up a Christmas present for somebody, how big paper I needed to allow me enough to wrap all the way around with a bit of an overlap and a little bit of an overlap at the ends. And I decided that my patterned paper for these particular chocolate bars needed to be 2 3/4 by 4 inches. And then I'm going to actually put them into this cellophane bag, which in the catalogue, these are in the annual catalogue, they're called clear medium envelopes, and you'll find them on the envelope page. There's something else which is kind of hidden away. You can actually send things through the post in these. They're not a standard UK size envelope, but you can obviously make your cards to fit them, but they are really sturdy and nice for packaging. So I'm going to slide these 3 that I've wrapped inside, and then I'm just going to do 2 more. So this paper is the Christmas season paper. I seem to have quite a lot of it with the berries left over, so that's why you can see it on 2 of these. I'm using what I've got. I think the paper wraps more easily if I just break the fibres a little bit with my bone folder, so I'm just kind of curling it like that. It's thicker than many wrapping papers, and so it's just a little bit easier to get it to stay where you want it if you curled it first. And it's quicker, I find, and easier to use double-sided tape on these. So I'm going to put a piece of that the length of this. So this is our tear and tape, and the backing comes off very easily. I'm going to pop this in upside down, and then just as if I was wrapping up a parcel, I'm just going to bring that edge over. Let's bring it towards you there, that's better. And then this is my wrong side, if you like, so I'm going to push down on that end. I'm probably teaching you how to do something that you're perfectly aware of how to do, but just in case you're not, and then push those corners in. So I'm going to do that on both ends, push down and then push the corners in, and you can even use your bone folder on this to make sure that that's really nice and flat and well folded. and then you can use whatever your preferred glue is. You can use mini glue dots on here. I'm going to use a little snip of double-sided tape either end. This tape is also great for wrapping your ordinary parcels for under the tree as well. You get that really nice kind of almost seamless look in your wrapping rather than using sticky tape that kind of sticks on the outside and shows. So that's another one, and I reckon I can fit 5 in here. So let's wrap up this last one. Push down on the ends. Bit of tape. If you can hear that noise outside, there's some piece of farm machinery doing something very close to the bottom of our garden. It's quite noisy. I'm hoping it's not distracting you. There we are. So that is the last one of those to pop in there. Yeah, I can just get 5 of them in there. I'm going to push them all the way down to the bottom. And then this has got a piece of adhesive on it, so you just need to peel off the backing, and then this will seal up on the back really nicely. So I've got a little packet there. I have some more of that red ribbon, so I'm going to do exactly what I did before. Turn it into a little parcel. Slide the ends underneath. And then just tie them in a single knot, which will keep all the ribbon in place while I tie the bow. And that's actually very sweet like that. And if you are one of those people who makes table gifts for Christmas Day, then this would be really, really cute, I think, on your Christmas table. It would look so pretty. And if you're not, then you're just giving it as a little gift. I'm looking for my bits in my bucket here. Then you can maybe make a little label for it. And I did have a stamp on a block. There we are. That's what I'm looking for. So I've got All Is Merry and Bright. This is from the Brightest Glow set, which I have loved using this year. I've got a real red ink pad here to coordinate with my real red ribbon. And I'm stamping this on a little piece of white card, and then I've got my rectangular postage stamp punch here. Punches are so quick. And I just need to cut a little bit off the end there, so I've got space to get it right in the punch. So if I look at the back here, I can see what I'm punching out and make sure it's straight. And just holding the punch partially closed will grip the card like that. It's not going to fall out. So I can check my placement, move it round, and then press down fully to punch the whole thing out. And then I've got some green and some red card here. I think I'm going to go with garden green. I'm going to punch another shape out. Let's just shut up that ink pad before I lean in it. Okay, so I've just got a little label here. Now obviously those two pieces are exactly the same size as each other. However, if I cut this one down the middle, I can glue one piece of it either end of my white label, and it will give the illusion of the green one being larger. You can do this with lots of punches. So turn one punch into two or even three, because I could do this again with another colour and extend it out. So there's a gap on the back, but you can't see that. And then I think I'm just going to kind of tuck that on there like that, probably with some dimensionals. So I'm not writing on the back of this label, it's just a little accent piece. All is merry and bright. There we are. And that is my third Christmas gift item. Now that's 3 gifts in less than an hour, because I talked for about the first 15 minutes. So I will bring them all back and show you, and I hope that will have given you a few ideas. I'm going to turn this grid paper over just so you're not distracted by my box maths on the front. So Mary says she has the postage stamp punch. It's so useful, and she has already made labels with it. Yeah, absolutely agree with you, Mary. I think it's such a useful punch. Okay, so here we go. I'll put both these bags here because although I only made one this afternoon, I did show you the other one. So first of all, we've got the Peekaboo treat bags, but you could do this with all kinds of packaging. I rummaged in my leftover die cuts box and put together some labels, but if you do have these bags, they are really great just for a little treat. This box has got the matchmakers in it, and I did some maths with you to show you how to take whichever box you've got, box of goodies, and make your own lidded box to go with it. And then this one is just some little treats, and these happen to be the little mini Kinder bars of chocolate, but they could have been anything, that I've wrapped up, popped in cellophane and tied a ribbon round, and then made a really simple little decorative accent piece to go on it. So very quick ways of dressing up extremely I was going to say cheap, that sounds awful, but inexpensive, let's say inexpensive gifts for Christmas, whether it's for your Christmas table or to pop round to a neighbour, or if somebody gives you a gift that you weren't expecting and you need something quick to pop round to them in return, or you're just doing your wrapping and you discover that you have forgotten someone. So I'm just going to turn the camera back up very quickly so I can say a proper goodbye to you and tell you about next time. Let's just cover that over. There we go, and hopefully, yes, I have managed to reverse the camera successfully. Ooh, let me just give myself a bit more lead, unclip it all. So thank you so much for joining me. I hope I've managed to give you a few ideas, and I will be back next Friday at 2 o'clock for my last session before Christmas. I'm actually going to make thank you cards next week. I always try to have some thank you cards by me before Christmas. I was one of those children that got sat down by her mum to write thank you cards within 2 days at the most of receiving a present. And now I'm an adult, I really appreciate getting a thank you card if I've given somebody a gift. I'm pleased to say that my nieces and nephews are extremely good at doing that, and it's very much appreciated, and I now understand why my mum was so insistent. So if you've got some thank you cards at the ready, you too can send them off and make somebody very happy. So that's what I'll be doing next week. Have a lovely weekend, wrap up warm. I think it's not going to be quite so cold next week, but the weekend I think is going to be cold. But whatever you're doing, have a lovely time, and I'll see you next week. You are very welcome, Kay. Thank you. And thank you everybody for joining me. See you soon. Bye bye.